Well, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining our session today, Mastering Data Complexity, Data Engineering in the Era of Modernization. I'm thrilled to be joined today by two wonderful speakers, Kannan and Renju. Let's go ahead and kick things off and get started with them introducing ourselves.
And I've been in the data industry for 30 plus years now. So before LiveRamp, I had my own startup on the IoT, and I joined LiveRamp around 3 years back. I'm working on biggest data transformation in the industry right now, moving up from a 60 petabyte of data from a file based to a database, and we are in the middle of that process now.
Awesome. My name is Renju Sakriya. I'm a principal engineer working with Wells Fargo. Before Wells, I've been working with Bed Bath & Beyond in a director position and with a media company, Havas Media. My experience is also many years in the data engineering space. Thrilled to be in this space. My recent gigs have been related to migrating from legacy data platforms to modernized data platforms. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much again for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started with our first question. In your experience, what are some of those key challenges organizations face when they're modernizing their data platforms from those legacy systems to cloud-based solutions?
Great question. Something that I've been doing recently, and many times I've seen organizations get stuck with their modernization and cloud migration process or projects, right? Modernizing the legacy platforms. There are multiple reasons that different organizations get stuck in this process. I would broadly go into two major categories of this. One is usually the real justification behind why they are going to a cloud-based solution, right? Many times the prompt or the trigger to move to a cloud-based solution is a contract coming to an end, which would prompt them to go look for alternate solutions and go find a cloud provider to migrate to, which is all good. Everybody wants to go to cloud. It's all great, but when that negotiation happens again, the contract reasons that they went to cloud with might not be relevant very soon, and they lose steam and interest and sponsorship in the project. So it's very important to have that justification to a business level as to why you would go to cloud and what your benefits are for the customer for going to a cloud-based system, right? So many times I've seen that beyond the total cost of ownership, there would be reasons like better engineering, a very resilient, operationally resilient system, improvement in your uptime, and overall high quality and faster output from your engineering team. So your engineering team can concentrate more on the core features for your business and for your customers, rather than keeping your data centers up and running and building those highly available systems, etc., which are natively available in cloud and modern systems. So laying that out, having a proper data strategy tied to it, and also putting out that value realization into your roadmap to show the business clearly that, hey, this is the attempt, and this is the value that we get from moving to cloud, and these are the time frame that you're going to realize these values, and have the business also logged in along with the IT. Would take away some of those challenges. The next set of challenges that I would like to talk about is the culture, the process, and the talent that goes with migrating to cloud-based systems. So many times there would be that that internal stakeholders and others who are not really prepared for that cloud migration, and also to think in terms of that cloud first strategy, right? Cloud first point of view. So there, it's very important to for the senior leadership to come up and to have that clear strategy out there to migrate to cloud, and to have that cloud champions identified from each team, so they can rally and get the rest of the team to have that cloud mindset of way of thinking too. The cloud skill sets can be closed with trainings, right? So that the team can come up to speed with the cloud technologies. So and there would be an array of issues that you might face, technical issues, when you go into a cloud-based solutions. I don't want to get into all those details; those are very specific to each organization. But identifying an MVP use case, putting it in front of business, working it through, and realizing the value from it, and showing it to both IT and business will take away most of those challenges, and that way the business and IT can realize the value from it too.
Absolutely. And Kannan, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that question.
So yeah, I think LiveRamp, as you may know or not know, so LiveRamp is in the data collaboration. It's a data collaboration platform. We are in the process of data collaboration, so we have to evolve as the industry evolves, right? To stay on top so that we can help our customers collaborate. So we are in the process of helping customers collaborate between each other, and our data sets are huge because we are dealing with biggest retailers and biggest publishers in that industry, right? So in that case, right, so it is when the cloud migration is considered, I'm looking at it in a two phases, right? One is we have everything in a data center and moving it to a cloud, right? So that is one process, that's a one lift, and we did it around 2019-20. We did that lift of moving from a data center to a cloud. That was a big process, but it was like just a lift and push it to cloud. But we are treating everything, our applications are still behaving like a data center in a way. Like we try to bring every data from every cloud, every system of our customers to bring it to our still our cloud of choice was GCP. So we had to bring it to GCP and process it and deliver it to the customers. Even though we moved to cloud, we are still thinking data center approach, right? As a second phase now, we are thinking, okay, how do we embed and use cloud things, and how do we develop together with that actually, right? So that is where our thinking is evolving right now. We are reinventing again, and now we did a lift and shift. Now we are evolving to be a real cloud company, because mainly because of the snowflakes and BigQuery and Databricks kind of bigger data warehouses, cloud data warehouses coming into play, and our customers having data in different clouds, and how do we bring them and how do we enable them to collaborate is becoming a new challenge. Now we are moving from a microservices based approach, microservices based data centric kind of approach, where we expect data to be moved to our system and we process by processing files. Instead, we are thinking about how do we develop embedded cloud components so that we can process the data where the data is. So that is an evolving change, and we are reinventing ourselves towards that change now.
Thanks so much, Kannan. And just to double click into that, I know when we were doing our prep call, you had mentioned that LiveRamp integrates with something like, over 650 advertisers. And I'm curious, what are some of those common methods that you use for data integration, such as API based versus the file based approaches?
So yeah, I think that's a good question. So currently, as I said before, right, we are working on a basically on a file-based approach where customer sends the files and we process the file and have it delivered to the 650 plus destinations, based on the customer needs, and make it available for them to run the campaigns. So that's our primary business. Basically, in the database world or database language, we provide primary key and foreign key for the customer touchpoint data. The customer touchpoint data can come from the customers in different sectors and different parts, and then we help them connect the data and integrate with their partners and with the external ad campaign platforms. So when we do that, right, it's like initially we had like different microservices running, copying files and processing them and having it enable them to get it to the destination, and it was all processing of file movement, file copying and everything. We are now moving towards zero copy processing, or at least one copy processing kind of level actually, right? So when we start thinking in that angle, our whole the thinking evolved in a way right now. So how do we use web components? Like for example, Snowflake as a native app, a native component, we developed and deployed there so that we can process in Snowflake itself, right? Similar things we are working with different databases as well. So right now we are adopting single store as one of the databases to move our existing current data sets to a database, which is around one of the biggest data moments, I think. We have around 60 petabytes of data, which are on files and in a thrift file format. And from there, we are moving towards a database, and exciting changes going on. And also, we are rethinking how we work with cloud as well, right? So our development from microservices moving into cloud embedded components kind of thing. So, which is an interesting path, and we are super excited about it, and we are, I think, leading the industry in that change.
Renju, you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about modernizing data platforms, but I'm curious, in your opinion, how should companies be thinking about simplifying their data ecosystem? And what are the next steps in solving some of those challenges?
Great. Good question. So I would use my time at Bed Bath and Beyond to answer this question. So when we were embarking on this modernization journey at Bed Bath, there were multiple ETL solutions that we used to bring in ingest data, to transform data, and to make that data available to the end consumers, which were mostly analytics and reporting. So there was a low code, no code based platform. There was a fully coded code based platform, etc. That was brought in, and it evolved over the time. It was all on prem. There was an MPP data warehouse that was on prem. There was Hadoop, of course, which was an appliance that is also on prem. So we were constantly figuring out the engineering aspect, also how to keep it up and running all the time, how to make it highly available, how to scale these systems, etc. So when it came to modernizing, there was a clear opportunity to simplifying the data ecosystem, right? So what the thought process was to break this functionality into archetypes and patterns, how data is moving across these systems. So, and within each of the patterns and archetypes, what we did is we identified some cloud-based, managed, scalable solutions, which are kind of independent and brought together by the overall orchestration framework. So to make things a little bit more clear, let's consider the ingestion framework. So we had two different frameworks. We were using one for ingesting from our legacy SOR, and one that we needed to extract data from modern sources, APIs, etc. So that's where we brought in Nextla to be able to talk to any of the sources, whether it be legacy mainframe systems or modern ERPs, APIs, webhooks, etc. It was mostly low code or pretty much no code integration. We were successfully able to ingest few terabytes of data a day using this mechanism into our raw layer for the data warehouse. The all the transforms were already implemented in SQL, so we didn't want to move away from it. It was a lot of work to take away the SQL and put it in some other transformation engine. But so we leveraged the cloud data warehouse SQL capacity capabilities to do the transforms. Also, in the infrastructure as code space, we identified Terraform for that purpose. Used CI/CD capabilities that were provided by our cloud partner, and also we leveraged Apache Airflow, which was again a managed service that was provided by the cloud vendor that brings all of these functionalities together. If I may sum it up, it is identifying the different archetypes, the patterns, and using individual or limited tools and framework that can scale and that are cloud native and that are managed to achieve the overall data platform modernization and the data ecosystem itself. Thank you.
That's great, Renju. Thank you for that. And we love hearing those practical applications of Nextla and the success you guys saw previously too. Kannan, maybe you could touch a little bit on how, you had mentioned moving from the database then to Google Cloud Platform. Can you talk a little bit about how LiveRamp approaches the adoption of multi-cloud environments in your data engineering strategies?
So yeah, thank you. Yeah, so basically, right, as we move to the cloud, so the multi-cloud or dealing with different cloud is inevitable, right? Especially when we're dealing with the data collaboration and when you're dealing with multiple customers, So that is something we can't avoid, actually, right? So the right now, even though our primary cloud is GCP and we have all our graph building, identity graph side of things are all in GCP, we have started working with different clouds as well, integrating them very closely. And we are working on a federated part also, federated engine, where we can connect to different data sources from different clouds and bring them into in a common place for them to collaborate, actually, right? So that is one of the things we are working on right now, and where we can bring in like a similar to zero copy read I mentioned. So we can connect to different data warehouses from the different cloud and integrate them, bring the data into a common place and join them and have it available for our customers to run analytics on it. And also, like our clean room is one of the initial bigger initiative we've been focusing on. And recently we acquired a company called Habu, which completely focuses on data clean rooms, and that mainly focus on multi-cloud, inter-cloud collaborations, actually. So right, that took us to a different level now with Habu being part of us, and the clean room concepts and clean room things has been taking into a different level now.
That's great. And maybe could you double click into, with managing those data across multiple clouds, the concept of, data fabric layer and maybe that significance in kind of managing that data?
Yeah, I think the data fabric is where our a lot of innovation going on right now. We are doing really, really big level innovations on the data fabric side of things as well. So as you guys know, data fabric is a newly coined phrase, actually, right? It's basically a layer where clients that needs access to data and the actual data. That layer between those two is which is defined as data fabric, basically, right? So where it involves a catalog, right? To have a catalog where it can have the catalog or the assets that needed, and then data governance and data orchestration. So these are the layers where I think Nextla is going to play a role in a bigger way in the evolving of data fabric, I think, right? That's a Nextla kind of tool will be right fit in there in the middle to solve that problem better, I think, right? So with that, we have a catalog system, we have a data governance system, and an orchestration layer. Because of our privacy and guidance, those layers becomes very, very crucial for us, and that layer is what we are building now, to putting them together with the web partners, vendors, and our own things we develop to coin that, so that that can act as a layer where we can get data from different components or different data sources and put them together, have it available for our clients to collaborate. People who come from the different data world, we can appreciate is like initial thinking in the data center time, and also the platform kind of thinking. We always think that, hey, there's a big client layer and a humongous data fabric layer sits in between the data, and everything has to go through that kind of is what we imagine when we imagine data fabric. Whereas in the new thinking, what we are realizing now is, when the cloud embedded world, it is a component, it's a tool that relies in an embedded component way, so that it can act as an interface between the application that needs data or client that needs data and the actual data. So when we started developing initially, we thought it's like a platform thing. Later, when it's evolving, now we are thinking, oh, you know what? Fabric is a component thing which underlies between those two layers, actually, right? So that revolution and the change is big, and I think it is, with the current growing trend of all the cloud warehouses, this becoming more and more relevant and more obvious now.
Thank you for that, Kannan. And, Renju, I'm curious, we hear about data fabric being mentioned as well as data mesh. And I'm curious if you can elaborate maybe a little bit on, data mesh and data as a product and how those could contribute to better data control and management.
Definitely. Yeah. So data mesh is it's a decentralized data architecture that organizes data by domains, right? So it's an architectural pattern actually for implementing enterprise data platforms in large and complex organizations. So in smaller organizations, they just start off with a centralized data ownership and data platform. But as the organization grows and as you modernize your data platform to follow the microservice architecture, right? It's the data. It's hard for that centralized team to own and be able to govern and even become subject matter experts on that data. So, and hence this concept of data mesh that has data mesh that has come up. up. So there are four main underpinning principles of this of the data mesh. The first is the domain-oriented, decentralized data ownership and architecture. Right. So the concept is that the team that is closest to that data or owns that domain will own the data also. They'll be responsible for owning the data and be able to explain and make it available to other domains that need their data, right? So such decomposition, it will result in a bounded context for the data ownership, and rightfully that domain will be the experts for explaining that domains their particular data that they produce. So the second principle is treating data as a product. So earlier data used to be treated as a byproduct of the microservice. Everybody would the domain would go about building their application and the core feature that they are developing, but the data becomes a byproduct of that and gets pushed down to the centralized data team or the data warehouse, who are responsible for owning that and making some use of it. So as the organization grows, there is this principle of using data or treating data as a product, and be able to own that and make it available for others to use. So along with data as a product comes very critical role of a data product owner, who is responsible for evangelizing the data, making sure the data is used to be able to explain to others, and to treat it as a product in every sense, to look into the life cycle of data products as well. And there is a corresponding data product developer roles also, who will be responsible for building pipelines and making that data available. So when you treat data as a product, it's not just the data, but there is the code and the infrastructure also that goes along with it. That that means there has to be an infrastructure which is a self-service platform, right? So that is a third principle, where third pillar of this data mesh, where a self-service platform is required for serving the data. So every team, if they have to treat the data as be able to own their own domains data, they would need the access to infrastructure, tools, and platform to make that data available and to create their data products and make it available for the rest of the enterprise. The fourth pillar is a decentralized governance that is required for making the data clean and be able to be used successfully by other teams and other domains. The centralized when the data was centralized, there was a centralized model of governance also, but since the data in data mesh is owned as a product and by a domain team, it makes a lot of sense to have governance also at that domain level, and the data domain team be able to govern, own, cleanse, and make the data accurate and be available to other teams as a product, as a data product. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys both so much. This has been great. Just to wrap things up today with our last question, I'm curious to each one of you, what kind of advice would you give to organizations that are looking to build or enhance their data capabilities? And Renju, let's maybe have you answer that one first.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind is to have the business value of the data, to have a clear business justification of why you are building this data platform or why you are embarking on your data journey, right? So today, in today's era, data is the most one of the most key elements in making your organization successful, to be able to build data products that can be used for decision making, for building analytics, and serving your customers better, to rolling out new features. So having a clear business goal for your data journey is of utmost importance. Next is having a clear data strategy. encompasses governance, clear data observability, is also very important. Something else that comes to my mind is keeping the data refreshed and up to date with proper governance is of real good importance. And last, I would say that having some visibility on how your data products are being leveraged and constantly monitor their use, and also retire things are that not relevant, and to constantly improve the data products is also important. So those are some advices that I would give to anybody embarking on this journey. Thanks.
So yeah, I think those are really good advices actually, right? So from my perspective, I'll say, right, so think when you start thinking cloud first or cloud embedded or cloud based architecture, take a framework like, as Renju said, go for a data mesh or a data fabric, and pick up a framework and look at what industry does and what industry is doing, and learn from there and create a framework accordingly that will suit your needs and start solving problems. My recommendation would be like, think cloud actually, right? Then you have a little bit transformational thinking than what you are thinking, used to think in the data centric point of view, right? So now when you think cloud, then you look at the embedded components or embedded things available already, right? For example, the cloud warehouses right now available are really powerful and really getting there, and like for tools for governance and catalog are available through partners. Leverage them and build them actually, right? Even though you are thinking cloud agnostics, some of the PubSub kind of standardized features available in all cloud, right? So it is agnostic again. So when you use them over just a thin layer on top of it, you can make it agnostic actually, right? So in LiveRamp right now, we're transforming that whole file-based flow into a simpler way of saying we're using Red Panda for streaming. By the way, it's a Kafka in place replacement. We're using Red Panda as a streaming in layer and single store as a data processing layer, and streaming out again with Red Panda. As we are making it so simple, making the footprint smaller and embedding it into the cloud will be the best advice. Like, don't keep a bigger, huge footprint. Try to reduce the footprint into smaller footprint and embed it in the cloud, scale with the cloud so that you can utilize the cloud's features a lot and embed it and distribute the data. So
All right. Well, thank you both, Kannan and Renju, for joining us today. This has been a super insightful session, and I really appreciate your time. Folks, if you have any questions, just please feel free to submit those into the questions box, and we'll do our best to get to those. But thank you again so much.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.